Don't panic. Thank you guys for coming to Musicians Institute today. We are very lucky to have one of our successful alumni join us today, and I want everybody to say hi to the very talented and very groovy Nicole Row. Nicole, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Wait, I'm doing great. I was really excited to hear that you were coming in here, and then Stu asked me to kind of do a chat with you, and I've been looking forward to it ever since I got that call. Which was the end of was the end of last year.
Yeah.
And speaking of Stuart, Stuart's in the room right now. Stuart Jean is here, who is our director of the performance schools, and he's initiating these events. So, Stuart, thank you for setting this up.
My pleasure. Thanks, Maurice, for that. Maurice, you are been at MI for quite some time. You're a fabulous bass instructor. You're
Thank you.
dealing a lot with our MI online presence currently as well, which is building. We have obviously all of our performance programs up online as well. And thank you, Maurice and Nicole. Thank you so much for being here. We also have Director of Outreach and Marketing, Steve Lunn, is here as well, joining us. Everyone, Steve and myself will hide into the background in a bit, but we'll be answering your questions. If you have specific questions about Musicians Institute, enrolling, programs, things like that, Steve and I can handle that. But of course, Maurice and Nicole will answer your specific questions that you have for Nicole. So thank you so much, Maurice and
You
Nicole.
bet, guys. Hey, Nicole, first of all, happy 2021, and
Oh,
hope your holidays went well. Everything good?
oh yeah, everything was peaceful. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Did
you
you?
know, I was very good and I didn't go anywhere. My mom is not happy about that, but um I'm healthy, so
Yeah. Is no travel to the family or anything like that?
no, no. I have some at-risk family members who are just like, come over, no mask. And I'm like, I'm not gonna come from LA to you like that. That's not gonna happen. So
Yeah, we're living in a hot spot for sure.
yeah.
Wow. Um, as I was preparing for our hang today, I realized that we've known each other for 10 years.
Yeah.
Man,
Right? That's why I got so excited when you came on the screen. Like,
wow, it's cool. So, um, everybody, Nick, I've been teaching at the school for a couple of decades, and Nicole showed up at 2010, and I remember you coming in and just being a kind of a very driven energy and a person that was already demonstrating some talent with music, and the faculty saw that too. It was clear to all of us that you had this gift and this drive to make music a profession. Um, where did your inspiration for music come from? I think you grew up in Fresno. Is that
yeah. Yeah, I did.
is that where you were lived the whole time?
Mhm. Yeah. Super exciting there.
So did yeah, like myself, I found friends in high school and we got into bands. Was that a similar kind of thing, or were there performance programs in your high school?
I didn't go the formal route. So most people that I know, I feel like entered, jazz band and all that stuff in high school, but I was really into music just as like a tiny little wee child. Faking keys and singing and recording myself on like a tape cassette player. Um, so I got really into it just kind of on my own. My mom started bringing home instruments and I would dabble on different things. And it wasn't until about high school that I accidentally like sat in with a bass with this band that I was already playing with. And I just like really locked into that and felt like really into it. And that's why it's interesting because when I started at MI, I felt very just so green. I came in and I remember my audition actually. He was like, okay, so I didn't even touch the bass because he started asking me questions. That was Alexis. And you
Yeah.
could just tell he was like, oh man, this girl has no theory. Like she's got nothing under her belt, like for bass. So started at level one. And yeah, it just started really late. But like you said, I feel like I just kind of went into it like, I got to absorb everything I can in the limited amount of time that I'm here.
From talking to a lot of students, that's a very common feeling. I'm
Yeah.
also I'm a graduate from the school myself, and to realize that, especially since somewhere along the line in time that public schools and things took music programs out of high schools and things
Yeah.
like that. So you know, if you were doing that, it was in extracurricular activities or something like that. So the fact that we were getting, you know, domestic students that weren't trained through theory or anything like that was becoming like the more common situation. But I think, you know, you own this instrument, you come into this school that's totally dedicated to music, and then you're like, you realize like you can't, you're not even able to field the most basic questions at that
Yeah.
point. But I remember very clearly that you did not let that hang for long. You dug in and really kind of learned the language and learned the techniques and developed your own voice too. You know, which was cool. Another nice thing about you too is that people were recognizing that you had a talent for this, but you were very humble in personality and you were very gracious, and you don't see that all the time because it's such an ego-based thing we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Really.
And that is that's not something we teach at a school or that you can find at a school. I think that's something you um, probably have in you from, you know, family and home life and your school experience. But like that probably opened some doors for you that may not have if you weren't as you know, kind of grounded as you were. Don't you agree?
I really do. And actually, something that I've been noticing actually just recently with something I just did is the more advanced work that I'm doing with more advanced people, the less ego I'm seeing. So these really, really successful artists and musicians have, you know, almost no ego that they're carrying around and shoving in people's faces. And I think that you know, in the end, we're all just trying to kind of get through the day and do the thing we like, you know, without having to deal with any of that. So if you can come into it not thinking you're the, you know, you're the best, you know, or like thinking super highly of yourself, it's, you know, you could get in a car accident and lose your hand, you know, and if you have a huge ego and aren't nice, then what do you have?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I think that that's really, really important for anybody in
I think
any
that was
world.
something as a student too when I was there, that I remember that MI was like I coming to Los Angeles and getting ready to go in this field that is very competitive. I thought that school was going to represent that, and you get to MI and it's completely the opposite. It's this tribe, it is this family that is so interested in preparing you for to be competitive out there because, as anybody can imagine, this is not like you go punch a time card and show up at the factory and you play bass for 40 hours a week. It's not that, you
Not
know.
at all.
No, it's a form of self-employment, and you are your own promoter, and you are you know, you are the only thing that can make or break an audition if you have the right, you know, kind of skill set or the things they look for, um, you know, for whatever position they're trying to fill. Now,
Yeah.
I remember one of the first gigs that high profile gigs that you got out of school was Miley Cyrus, or that was sort of the reminder of that you were one of, you know, one of our alumni. It's like, oh wow, how cool is that? So Miley was hitting it, and this is probably before Cannonball that hit, right?
No, it was after, because it
Right
was
after
her return to that was with Malibu. So it was her return to a more country country vibe, pop
that.
country.
Okay.
Yeah.
What so what was that audition like? And could you have done that without the education you had? Do you think like even like the preschool Nicole could have scored that gig or?
Absolutely not. No, I that's something I just came to my mind earlier was something else you said. I learned a lot of um very intense, difficult lessons at MI with the LPWs specifically and in class. But you know, going to an LPW, which I think I spent a lot of time at the funk one, it's like my favorite, and uh, you know, you can't get up there and not know what you're doing, not know the tune, right? And not know when it's your time to come in because, you know, you'll get called out, which is very necessary.
It
Yeah.
exposes a
And
fact that you didn't prepare or something.
yes, and the fact that in the moment it's scary because you're new and you're young, but it's much needed. I'm very happy that happened because it just makes it very clear for you, like what you have to come in and be able to do and what's expected of you. And I think a lot of that came through with the Miley gig because actually there was no audition. I just I had worked with the musical director before, and so he called and just asked if I could come in last minute because they had a schedule issue with their other bass player. So there was no audition. I just had to come in, know all the tunes, and do it and get along with everybody.
Wow.
You know, so.
So, I mean, another benefit of anybody going to, you know, pursuing any profession or developing the skills to do that, you go to a, you know, campus to do that. The networking is almost as valuable as the education itself, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, well, I'm still very tied to the concept of you got to practice. You got to like put in the time and the work and know what you're doing and have a sound, you know, but there's also the other aspect of, you know, getting along with people and having friends because it's your community. You know, it's not just all about you and your money and working and that kind of thing. It's a group of people being creative, you know, like why we started playing music. So having the connection and getting along with that person and them liking what I provided made them call me back for something. And, you know, you got to have all of that, I think, to kind of continue working. Yeah.
Thank you for kind of endorsing the continuation of practice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm huge on that.
We've even had some clinicians come in before, which is another kind of cool thing about MI is that we're in, you know, as they say in the real estate business, location, location, location. Natural resource of the city is all these successful musicians. But I've had to say there's been one or two that have come in that seem to are trying to ride out the one hit they had or the one kind of success they had, and then practicing and continued evolution or development seems to be lost its priority or something with those
Yeah.
with that individual. I don't see a whole lot because it's usually you know, we get like genuine true musicians that want to honor the craft and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's all just, in my opinion, it's just what you want for yourself specifically, like ignoring everything else. Like for me, I would love to just be a session bass player, you know, just hide in a room and not have to go out in the outside world on stage. And for me, that having that in the back of my mind is what keeps me. I want to be learning all the time just about me and my instrument. It's selfish, but that's true, you know. So, and at MI, I remember somebody told me, somebody said, make sure you take the time that you have now to practice, because once you're out in the world and you're working and you start a family or you're touring, it's a lot of it goes away. So that's something I think.
Did that turn out to be true?
Oh yeah. I battle with my practice schedule constantly.
I mean, it's very wise advice, and I got that too. And it's very true that this is like, you need to take this time that you've etched out for yourself to get this education, but it's not just your school schedule you need to, you know, stay religious to. It's you know, putting in the time between classes and
yeah,
you know, getting all those lessons, you know, owned by yourself, so it is inside you and you can you know, pull it out anytime you need it.
Yeah.
You went for your AA degree at the school, and your schedule that was focused on bass. Your schedule consisted of a technique, you know, graduating through levels of technique, reading, and a performance class, which introduced styles. This thing you mentioned, LPWs, which is an acronym for live playing workshops. This was another exposure to styles. In addition to that, you got the language of music through harmony and theory classes and ear training. The school kind of broke that all down into singular studies, right?
Yeah.
How do you think that's effective?
Oh yeah. You're saying breaking it down by subject?
Yeah, I mean, your experience at the school and developing your skill set, did you find that an effective approach, the way that MI did that for you?
I mean, definitely. I think, yeah, the way everything was really kind of dissected was good for me to find out what I was really lacking.
Right.
You know? One thing I definitely think that maybe other people going into it could take away is those open counseling classes. And in class, I think for me, where I could have done better is I have really gnarly stage fright, and it was really hard for me to willingly get up and play in class, and go to open counselings. So that's something, you know, just like in real life, not real life, but post school, you know, jams, like getting up and performing and being able to get up and have all the stuff that you've learned, be able to lay it down, right? That's something that you can get from the school, and I think people should kind of keep their eyes on, because that's not so much, people will try to pull you out of, you know, your shell and get
Right.
you to play and stuff, but that's also an internal thing, right? You have all the knowledge, but you have to be able to get in and apply it. Make sense?
Well, you look like, yeah, you look like you successfully overcome stage fright.
Well,
I mean, was that just due to the hours logged on stage that the school kind of, I mean, you can't really function, or you can't make it to your credential if you're not doing that.
yeah, right. I mean, that's definitely, MI did a lot of that for me. You know, once people would be like, you know, a teacher would scan the room and see me over there, like looking down, like, oh God, you know, don't call me. And they would call me, and same thing as like the, you know, LPWs. It exposes you in a really great way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, MI did help me with that stage fright a little bit.
And as we can look back at the tape, no one ever died, right?
Exactly. It only gets better. It only gets better every time.
Yeah, it does. I think myself, I did this, you did it too, and a lot of people that actually made success brought a sense of humor to these environments, because if you do get called out because you messed this part up, or this wasn't like, were you listening to the same song we were? Because, you know, and if you knew how to take that, it would also, you would go back and probably correct that part of the song, although it was now past the assignment.
Yeah,
but you go back and correct that, and then realize, and that one of the lessons is like, okay, I'm never going to have that happen again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I always thought that was a really cool vibe for that school gave you.
Exactly. I mean, you know, thinking back on what I was doing before school, you only put yourself in the position of what you're comfortable with, right? So that's how you grow, is go to school and
for sure
jump into a million things. Yeah.
I'm going to take a quick detour here, and we had some people writing in some questions, and this question came from a friend of ours named Eric Goodmanson. I hope I'm saying that right. And he prepared a question before today, and I was wondering if you could respond to him. He's going, I'm working on becoming a more prominent studio musician and a touring sideman. I know how to play guitar, bass, and sing, and I'm developing proficiency on piano. What advice do you have for someone trying to break into the industry with the hopes of becoming a studio musician or a touring sideman? And he thanks you for that. So that is everything you do.
That is everything I do. You know, I think that's very different from person to person, but you know, networking obviously is huge, right? As you know, for that. So if they're planning to go to MI, right, that's step one, right? You network. I still work with a lot of the people that I went to school with. So that's part of how that starts. And, you know, in my opinion, being a session musician means that you are one of the best at what it is that you're doing. Your instrument.
The session musician openings are, that's really reduced since the computer age came in for our instrument, I think.
It is, but it's also expanded it too in a different kind of way. So there was, as of this year, so everything before this year, there was like you know, a lull because there's all this computerized stuff and people don't need musicians. But now what I'm seeing this year because of COVID is people are desperate to work with each other. And everything I've been creating is with all true musicians, real musicians. Like if I write a part on my piano, I'll call my friend and have him, I'll pay him, he'll record his part, you know, and I'm seeing that a lot in my community, at least. People supporting each other, it's growing, more people are coming together. So yeah, that's just kind of, networking is huge for me. So which school and then go to jams, right? Yeah.
Like a lot of metropolitan cities have these open jams. That's a pretty, I mean, you might have to wade through some kind of goofiness once in a while, but that it is a place where players come to, meet other players and you know,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I've had a lot of great things come out of the jam community,
yeah.
a lot of really amazing musicians, and it's people getting up there and showing off and overdoing it, but it's also people meeting each other and being friends and networking, so
Yeah,
um,
so I mean, to answer Eric's question, I mean, it's about practicing and meeting people and being cool and being flexible, right? And
it's all the above, and I think also just thinking about somebody saying they want to be a session musician. For me, a lot of that was software was where I lacked. I had to really spend the time to learn how to use my software.
that's become almost a necessity now, isn't it? If
Yeah.
you're yeah, if your computer literacy is not modern right now, that might be a place to put someone's attention right now, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it sucks that you know when I started thinking I was going to be a bass player, I was like, I only have to do this one thing, like just really, really well. And that's possible, obviously, but there's so much more to the music industry now that's recording from home, like now with COVID, everybody has a studio.
Right, right.
uh,
You got to know how to ship files and
yeah, yeah.
and and do all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Hey,
That's classes for.
Casey Thompson asks, "What's the best way to stand out as a musician? I'm starting to get my own gigs, going into my own city and around my county. I mostly sing and play piano with my friend Danielle, who is an absolute legend. He's producing for MTV, Catfish, and he's done some shows. So this person oh wow, playing with an artist like Leon Russell. Um, so Casey wants to know what it takes to stand out.
I mean, well, that's kind of a tough one to answer. In my opinion, I think there's no real like golden ticket to standing out. I think a lot of that is you just kind of have to know what it is that you like personally, have your own sound that you can provide. Obviously, you have to be able to imitate a lot of different sounds working with people, but if you can have something to offer that's unique and not imitated by a bunch of other people, your own personal thing, I think that's huge.
You entering Panic, you are filling in. You are well. There was an abrupt departure, right? Wasn't that a very fast turnaround
Oh
when
yeah, yeah,
Dallin left,
yeah.
right? So you being on an instrument that's not the feature instrument of the band, right? I mean, it's not based around the star bass player or anything like that. What's the advice can you pass along? Because I guess this goes more to I don't know. I think you're a band member, not a side man in that band, right?
Yeah, that's the difference here between any other gig I've ever done is a
But there are some people that like overreach sometimes, or
yeah.
kind of step on their own cable, and
Oh, are you talking? Yeah, interesting. You
so
way
to
to say
speak.
that. Yeah.
Uh,
Are you referring to people
I'm
kind
confused
of
about
dying over
coming
top of?
in and having to fit into this group that was already an ensemble that of friends. Was there some sensitivity to your approach to that band? And you like you said you've had a history with stage fright. And you are just you're just kind of a calm, humble person. So was there any kind of mental mentality that you needed to take into that?
Um, actually, when I went in to do the audition, that was a whole nother story. It wasn't really a true audition either, but I went in with a couple things prepared, and went in with a pick, which I don't play with a pick. And when I started to play with this, with a pick like that, they looked at me and they said, "That's not how you play. We want you to play how you play." And that was a real eye-opening thing for me. That people choose you kind of based off what you have to offer, right? And so that's something to consider too. But I didn't really go in with a specific mindset or fear of stepping into that role. You just kind of have to go head first,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like acting, right? Like you're picked because you're good for the part.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I've always found that if you try to take in somebody that's not yourself, now you've got to do that act for the rest of the time you're with those people,
And that's not going to happen.
which is exhausting, and that probably just there's something that's going to get exposed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you with somebody 24/7, they're going to see that.
Yeah. One of our awesome bachelor-based students, Maxwell Pierce, has asked, "Hey Nicole, please tell us about the bass players that inspire you." And then he also wants to know about which bass is your favorite.
Okay, so this question, I thank you for asking it, but it's funny because I never have a good answer for this. I never was a person to follow another bass player. I kind of jump around from different people depending on what thing I'm trying to absorb at that time. Like right now, I'm obsessed with Derek Hodge because I'm trying to get, some of his stuff he can play timings that I don't feel right. When I listen to it, I'm like, oh, I would never have done that, and that's just kind of how my whole life has been. I remember I started at MI and somebody was like, you ever heard of Tel Wilkenfeld? Because you should, female bass player. And then there was a time where I was obsessed with her, and it's just kind of it's real all over the place. And the other question was, what is my favorite bass that I have?
Yeah, well, I noticed that you had a short scale by Fender.
Yeah.
Made for you, right?
I do. That's actually in storage right now because we have to make another modification to the pickups, like the location of them. But I mean, my favorite bass is actually oh God, how am I spacing on his name? Motown instructor.
Mike Manel.
Mike Manel. God, I'm such a jerk. He actually found this bass for me. I'll grab it for you in a sec, but he found this bass for me on eBay when I was going to school there because I was kind of I wasn't settled in my instrument, and I ordered it, and it's still my favorite bass to the day.
Is it the Marcus Miller?
Yeah.
I have to say, when anybody ever brings your name up, the picture that comes in my mind is you playing that bass.
That's my house. That's where I live.
Right. That's really nice when you find that instrument, right?
Yeah.
That's just your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
I realize myself, when I purchase instruments now, I purchase them for a color. That's it. It's like basically the same shaped instrument all the time.
I know.
I want it now in like a burgundy. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I do the same thing. They all basically look exactly the same. The neck is always the same. It's that thin jazz maple neck.
Yep, love it. It's perfect. Yeah, if I had to go to Desert Island and take only one bass, it would be a Fender Jazz myself. Jacobs asks, did Nicole memorize her music for Miley, or did she bring charts and was allowed to read on stage?
Oh God, I was just thinking about that. If I had walked into that gig with charts, I probably would have been told to go home. That's just that's my experience with certain things where there's it doesn't really make sense because there's some gigs you go into and everybody's nobody's going to learn it. They're just going to read it. Right.
Right.
And they're gonna, destroy it. Just, looking at this chart, right. They don't need to memorize it. But then there's other gigs you go to. It's a part of the performance, right? The songs, you're engaged with people on the stage. And that's, a lot of the pop world is that it's the music, but it's a performance. People want to see you vibing, looking around, so no, I had to memorize that.
I saw another question on here earlier too. I think the person's name was Casey. I can't find it now, but they were asking, does a degree in music help you get work, or did that enhance your career? Does anybody come up to you and go, hey, do you have a resume with your educational breakdown?
Not anymore. They did. I feel like when you're younger, that comes up very rarely, but only for certain, if I tried to be a teacher somewhere, but there's no real good answer, in my opinion, to that question because there are people who've done certain things with no education, but majority of people, everyone I know that I work with, has gone to school and has proper education, and it shows,
Is it surprising to you? Because no. I remember, now that I have that went through music education, I can see it now in musicians. But prior to that, and I'm looking at pop bands and rock bands I grew up in loving, and they never went to school, and it's well, yeah, they did. You know,
Yeah,
you find
right?
out that like there's 2/3 of the band that were like they met at a music school or
Yeah,
and
exactly. And
networking.
if everyone I know, my whole community of musicians, it's except for a few, right? Everybody is like, "Oh, where did you go to school?" And it's like part of the community of like, "What family are you from?" You
Hmm.
know?
Right.
Um, but yeah, I 100% back school. Like, yeah, I don't know what would ended up happening to me if I didn't
Did
learn
you
what the
did you
notes on my fretboard were.
did you read before you got here
No.
to school?
Oh no. I
But
had no idea.
reading is usually the vegetables on the plate, so to speak, I guess, in the academic analogy. But that's a really helpful skill to learn, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And I still have to do that. I did a gig recently. Where was it? It was like some musical. I, was playing with the band for a musical and sight reading, and it's so fun. It's so much fun. I struggled with it for a hot second when we started because I was afraid of it, but now I love it. Any chance I get to read. And also,
There's a point between burden and enjoyment,
yeah,
but
and it just clicks. But I even had to do that in the studio with for a specific recording. What was it? It was they put a chart in front of me for oh my god, what is that Disney song? Into the Unknown.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, the Frozen tune. So
Mhm.
yeah, it comes up 100%. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Everybody needs to hear that before they
Mm.
choose to be truant on
Yeah,
their.
don't cheat yourself.
We're getting a lot of people asking about advice getting into the music industry, but Kayla P asked that. But then she goes, "What is a mistake that you've made and regret music wise, and that you don't wish a new artist to make?" Well, did you
Um,
run into anything that like, oh, I would do that different next time? Or
yeah, I mean, I am very guilty of when I was younger. I kind of hid in my room and did a lot of practicing, and I didn't go out and you know, uh, mix myself in with the community of musicians, and because I was afraid, yeah, because I was like shy and stage fright, and looking back on it, it doing stuff like that helps you grow so fast, so
yeah.
fast.
What is,
And
what is the thing that made you kick yourself out of the nest, so to speak? I mean, because that
other
is I
people,
see it at school too. You'll see these like really talented, guitar players, and all they do, you never see them in the live playing workshops. You
yeah,
just hear them shredding in these private lesson rooms, and there might be the stage, a little bit of stage fright, or
mhm.
I don't know, they're waiting for the perfect,
They're waiting for themselves to sound perfect.
right.
Yeah, that's never like the quickest way to get to perfect in your mind is to just throw yourself into those situations of playing and working with other people. And and that's actually get your education and then just dive in like fearlessly, because every single time you do it, it gets easier, it gets easier. Every audition you do gets easier. And that's something that I wish I knew earlier. I did have a bass player who's really successful in my eyes in our community, and he told me that because we were at a jam, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna get up there, I can't hang. Some crazy like legendary bass players were on stage, and he was like, you're only standing in your own way. Like that's all. And that's very true. I think
Really
that's,
do. Well,
yeah.
I've always tried to tell students it's like, well, perfect is really not a target.
No, you're never
That
gonna think you're perfect. You're never gonna think that.
if you think you've achieved perfect, maybe it's time to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think that's the joy of playing music. It's like, oh, next time I'm going to do this, or next,
Yeah.
because it's an expression. It's not like a math equation.
No. Yeah. It's a constant thing that you're always growing, you're always learning, and that's what keeps it fun, really. Like you're not just doing the same thing every day. It's always different. Yeah.
You expanded your offering by being able to play upright, and you also sing a lot. And I
Yeah.
don't. Again, I'm with the bass staff, so I wasn't paying attention. But did you take vocal lessons when you were at school, or did you take
Mama
vocal
O.
lessons? Huh?
Yeah. Said Mama O.
Oh, great
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I did. I took a little bit, but I really leaned more into bass. I probably could have done more in the vocal stuff. Um, I really wanted, to beat all the boys and like you know, like just
Yeah.
my face. So, yeah,
How,
I love singing. I've been doing it forever. I just have never really gone full force into the proper training. Just been faking my way through it.
do are you able to find harmonies easy, or do you need to be coached to do
I
that? Or,
I learned that eventually when I lied and I said I could do it at a
no.
gig, and I started doing this gig every weekend for 2 years, and I had to sing harmonies and lead and play, and I just I just dove in and tried, and eventually it started to stick, and now it's like I'm obsessed. It's constant. Yeah.
How long did it take to get comfortable with being on a stage in front of a big crowd, singing, having to play bass, having to look comfortable, and and also move around, look like you're you know falling into the groove? It's how
Yeah.
that's not something that's instantly
No,
comfortable.
not at all. It was really uncomfortable. I was very comfortable on bass at that time, but the reason I learned that group of skills so early on was because I just took a gig where I said I could, and it took like a couple gigs, maybe like a couple weeks, and then I settled into it.
Hmm.
But that just goes to say, like, you have to force yourself into those situations. Yeah.
Makes sense. This is an interesting question. Riza Sabiri, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. How do we connect with other artists in the new normal? So I know you said you kind of have your group that has a lot of common players in it and things like that, but do you have any advice on that?
I mean, that's tough because hopefully the new normal won't stay this way. I
Right.
really hope. I really hope so. If this is how it is for a long time, though, if you're going to school, is everything going to be virtual now?
We are teaching remote, and we develop. I mean, it's been in place for a little while, school by school, but we have an online program too, to where students can sign. And that was prior to the pandemic too. Was people can sign on, and they're just doing online now.
Yeah.
The online layout is gets you to the same credential. Um, if you're a campus student, but now doing brick and mortar just due to quarantine. Um, there's a different way that classes are presented, but
Yeah. Okay.
it's even at the school with this, we're trying to create faculty forums and things like that where students can congregate and meet with each other, and hopefully of like mind. If there's the forum is on a topic that they like, be it, oh, we're doing metal guitar this week, we have a metal guitar specialist, or here's Latin jazz or something like that coming up, and hopefully that's where students meet there. Now, if you're not in a school, and where do musicians, because the open jam's not happening now
Yeah,
either.
exactly, right? Well, what I'm seeing a lot of now is I'll get emails and messages on social media and whatever platform I'm using. People I don't know reach out and just ask. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, do you want to record on this tune? Are you working on anything you want to collaborate on?" And that wasn't how it was before, right? It was very much a close knit, people who know each other call each other, and that's it. But
Mhm.
now it's people are starting to discover that that's okay, maybe, or what they need. So I'd say just kind of go at it like that. Like just reach out to people. If you like their playing, just be like, hey, let's
Right.
like exchange some tracks. Let's create something.
Yeah. Even if you reach out and connect with one, now
Yeah.
you've doubled your entourage.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and
Huge.
that person knows somebody. Hopefully it triggers that way. I mean, it is a lot of work on our own. I mean, regardless of quarantine or whatever. I have to say, from bands that were starting to get interest, or things that I started school, if anything created fade outs, the
Hmm.
most it was because they stopped stomping the street. They stopped going out and pushing their thing.
Yeah.
They thought, oh, we're now playing now, and now the clubs are going to call, and it's like, well, there's just too many bands for that expectation to really become fruitful.
Yeah.
And so I do think that the whole constant keeping your name out there,
Mhm.
and being real and being kind and being reliable, is, I think, those qualities still open the doors properly.
Yes.
You agree with that?
Reliable keyword. Yes.
Miguel Lopez wants to know, other than music knowledge, what is good? What are things that you need to know to navigate the music industry as you have?
I mean, I feel like you already just said it. Your reliability.
Yeah.
um, I feel like I've seen so many times where I'll go to something and I think I'm the one who's, I should have been early. If that's what's in my mind of like, I should have been earlier than I already am. And then there's somebody who doesn't show up for like 45 minutes, and those people never get called back. So you gotta really like,
It's weird how that's responded. Like I'm from East Coast, so New York, it's like you'll get told why you did that, and in LA they'll go, "Oh yeah, that's okay, man. We understand
yeah,
traffic." It's like you'll never get with that guy on this same stage again. That'll
yeah,
be it.
traffic is not an excuse anymore in LA. Like people are like, oh, did you not know that traffic was a thing here? Like,
Yeah, that's always so weird in LA. Like, really, you're going to use traffic as an
yeah,
excuse? Oh, did that happen today?
yeah. So I mean, I guess just normal like human decency, right? You got to be good at your instrument, and you know, artistic is another thing too, right? You can't just be like, you know, a theory wizard and not have anything beautiful to offer. You have to be able to be creative and contribute to whatever it is you're doing. But then just, it's still, you're still working just because you're in an artistic, creative, world. You still have to like be on time and know your material, right? All that.
Right.
Yeah.
Maria Galavis um, asks, and this is a reasonable question, but it's a question we've asked through all the ages. Is it hard to make a living out of in the music industry?
I mean, yeah, I slept on a couch for a while. Like I think so I had a job through school and then like during school, not through MI, but and then after I, I was just kind of like doing auditions and doing like one-off gigs, just like a single gig and then nothing else for very little money. And I eventually I was working at a clothing store, and what I decided to do was because I couldn't attend enough, activities with my fellow musicians because I was working, I quit my job. I got rid of my room and I paid next to nothing to sleep on a couch in an apartment with like four dudes. And I had all my stuff in a closet. And then when I made all that time for myself, I eventually picked up this gig that was in Vegas and I was gone all the time and I saved up my money and then I quit that gig and I got an audition the next day. But you just kind of have to know that at any point you could be gigless. Yeah. And it's something, it is a lot of work, but it's a gamble, and it's also kind of part of the joy of life as a musician is, all the opportunities are there. You just have to chase them. It's
Right.
the hustle, right? That's what it's called.
There's some pride that comes out of the journey, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you grow and you learn a lot about yourself. And there's always you're gonna, in my opinion, people panic and sorry, people get nervous and think, if I don't have a gig and I lose all my money, you can find a job, right? You can double up, you can do whatever, you can totally support yourself in any situation. You just have to know that sometimes you might have to push your limits a little bit, juggle
Right.
a couple gigs, and then eventually it'll build up until you're a little more comfortable.
This might be a little hippie-esque or whatever, but I do believe that if your conduct represents intention of what you want, that those things will happen. And I've been gigless too, and wondering, calling my own phone just to make sure it was still working,
Yeah.
you know, and things like that. But I've also had friends who created the safety net with, like, a job and like a 9 to 5er, and I totally appreciate that. But then when opportunity came, they were at a crossroads with, like, oh, I've got this regular income with a job that I complain about, or I have this gig thing which could be very short-lived, or very
100%.
prosperous. Who knows? And I don't know. I think that's a personal choice you have to make.
Of course. Yeah, it is. It really is. And nobody can tell you that it's going to be fine. But that's, if you could also, I've seen so many people go through the same thing you just said, and sometimes they just, how scary it can be to not be certain, right, about something makes them fall back on whatever their other job is. And then they're mad they did it. They're mad they didn't do it. Right. So
Life's too short to sit there. Life's too short to not,
yeah,
at least take a
exactly.
shot,
Exactly. And I know so many musicians who aren't doing like, like the gig, like, that everybody like idolizes certain kinds of things, but they're doing great. Like right now is a struggle, but I know so many musicians who are just, doing what they love and getting by, and they're freaking happy.
Yeah.
It's,
Happiness is a valuable commodity, I have to say.
yes. Yeah. So
Um, we got a friend here, Jeffrey Bobila, wants to know how much would you recommend Mike to fulfill your needs to be a well-rounded bass player and to be able to be versatile to play with any band and different genres. So I guess they're wondering, did MI, fulfill all the training needs that you had in the time that you were there, and
yeah,
would you
definitely.
recommend it?
Of course. Yeah. 100% recommend MI. I mean, the only thing that was not 100% was decisions I made. The school offers everything and has so many cool like instructors that will guide you, mentally and emotionally through the whole process. So yeah, I honestly, I wish I would have stayed longer, like, because I could have just really done there's things I really wish I realized I needed that I didn't dive into heavily. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, like certain topics that I was like, oh, I can slack here. In my mind when I was 21, it's like I'll be fine without this. But yeah, no, the school offers everything. It's on the student
Yeah.
to absorb
There's
it.
not enough time to get to everything.
No, there never is. I still don't know a lot. Like right now, I'm like, oh, I got to work on this today. Yeah.
We have a friend here, Dylan. He wants to. Do you write lyrics?
Oh, I do. It's not my proudest topic, but
Okay.
yeah, I've done it. Yeah.
He was wondering if you had any tips for finding phrasing and
hmm
doing
Well,
the music.
I mean, what I do is I do more of a melody first with lyrics.
Okay.
I feel like most people I know do the same thing where it's more of just like a humming, and then once you kind of create the sound for the melody that you want, you just start to kind of throw like word vomit words over top of it. So I'll like loop a section of a tune I'm working on, and I'll just kind of like, I don't want to, like you just kind of whatever comes out. And a lot of the times I find that works really, really well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Oh man, we got so many questions. You're a very popular person.
Oh God. The palms are sweaty, you guys. I'm nervous.
You're a friend. Well, the whole thing about MI too is family for life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Oh.
I got people asking you if you can teach them singing.
Oh God, no. I mean, like, not legitimately. Oh my God. I just did a gig recently where I met one of the background singers. He really loves bass, and we kind of made this tentative agreement where he'd teach me like proper technique for vocals, and I'd teach him bass. But yeah, no, I can't teach vocals. Come on. It's not gonna happen.
Another friend here, Isaac Darrell. Nicole, what do you think about graduation in music? There are a lot of good guys musically on their instruments without a degree. What do you get beyond musical knowledge and your development in college?
What do you get?
I guess how did you or like what did you possess once you graduated that I guess you didn't have prior to going to a music school?
I mean, it's true that like, a lot of people will say that you learn the most once you dive into work, right? But there's also things you don't have time to learn once you're working, right? What you're doing is you're going to school to get the foundation of all the theoretical knowledge of that instrument and your technique, so that when you go to work, you learn all the work knowledge there, and you don't have to worry about like, oh, that's a great concept, but I can't throw it down because I haven't like practiced my technique on that. Like I can't play it, right? So and also I've heard a lot of people say that there's so many people who didn't go to school, but everyone I know, like everyone in all the different circles, I can't think of one person who said, I never went to school. Like you know, like a lot of the different genres too, you know, like the jazz, soul, like R&B crowd. Everybody went to school that I know. I think it's important. Yeah.
Let's see, Alejandro Amazequita. I'm sorry, I am probably saying that very wrong. But good
No.
question. Good question is like, what streams of income do you have as a professional musician?
So let me think. Currently, I mean, everything I'm doing is from playing bass, right? So all my touring gigs, currently really got into like the streaming world, which is a huge thing now because of COVID. So there's that. And then session work, so remote session work, so recording from here and then sending it off. But that's basically it. You know?
Are you a writer on anything that's making money, or?
I mean, not that's making real money. No, you know, like you get like a $2 check in the mail and you're
Oh, okay.
yeah, like
That's changed over the decades too, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
the mailbox money, for
yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Hey Nicole, how did you land your successful endorsements like Fender and Bartolini and Aish?
Yeah, so I mean, I did that whole thing where I was like, you know, chasing people down at NAM and you know, being like, come on. But that, you know, nothing really stuck until I got a legitimate, right? Something that had eyes on it, kind of a gig. Once I started to do, what was it? I think Miley was the kicker. Once I started working with Miley, I started to get a lot more endorsements, which I've also learned, you know, that's not everything. You know, endorsements are a very small slice of what the real big picture is. I feel like in my own memory, I went very far without any endorsement. And I think a lot of people do. It's all really just about your playing.
I agree.
Yeah.
And you're deserving. I have to. I will make that comment for sure.
Oh.
This is a good one. Do you have your own lick that you always play? I guess, do you have a couple Nicolisms that always seem to appear in your improvisation or whatever?
I'm sure I do. I can't really think of it. I mean, I know that there's things that I do. I don't even know what it is they are exactly. But when I do it, I'm like, oh, I did that again. You know,
I think the best way to have that not bother you is just not to identify them as your.
Yeah, no, and don't judge yourself for that. Like if you have your sound,
What else you do? Come
like
on.
who cares? It sounds good, it works, right? If it sounds good and fits over everything, you know, because there's gonna be that moment where you need that thing.
If you look out in the crowd and they're moving around or they're dancing a little bit, your job is being handled.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Who cares what I'm doing? So yes, I do. I can't really put it into words for you, but I'm sure it's like, you know, probably over a minor pentatonic shape.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I saw this question come up earlier and I don't have the name anyway, but like somebody was asking, what are you working on right now?
Well, right now I'm doing a bunch of different live stream things with people that will be coming out probably like a month or two from now. I don't really know how long that process takes, but I'm doing also session stuff. So things that are kind of seeds, right, that will eventually be out in the world. I'm doing a little bit of writing on my own, but because I am also working with, you know, artists and stuff, it's not necessarily what I'm focused on. You know, it's promoting my own music, right? If with this music, I'll probably shop it around. So not put it under my name, sell it to other people, and hopefully get it in something that will pay me money.
Well, I will I will keep my good wishes going in that direction for you.
Thank you. Same. Same to you.
You deserve that. You deserve that. We're getting kind of close here to the end. Let me make sure we haven't missed some. There's some really good. Oh, here's one. Well, I know Stu and I are both dog lovers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You have a dog. So what's it like having a dog for a touring musician? Who's taking care of
That's such a good question. Okay, so for the first couple years that I was getting into touring, my mom, I would drive up to Fresno and drop Taco off at my mom's house and then drive back like the day before. Taco the dog. Yeah, Taco the Chihuahua. And then now I live with my best friend who also has a little dog. And she's based in LA. Her work is based in LA. So whenever I go on tour, she's just like the best person on earth. She takes care of him. So
Perfect.
yeah, I got lucky. It's hard. It can be really hard if you don't have dog people in your community to juggle the two.
Right.
Yeah.
Auditioning. Where does well, I don't think auditioning is like in your world anymore. You've developed enough networking and exposure to where people that call you know what you do. But for students that graduate and even players out there that are going through the open jam route and all that kind of stuff, where do you pay attention for auditions in well, I guess we can't say during the pandemic world, but I mean prior to this, where was
I mean, I'm sure there's gonna end up being some type of audition process that's COVID style soon, but yeah. So I actually did a lot of the audition workshops with MI, and then I started getting called. Please remind me of his name. I'm so sorry, I totally forgot.
Barry
Barry
Squire?
Squire. Yeah, Barry Squire, who runs that. So once I did a couple of those, he's just a gem. He kind of like creates this network of the students, and he puts you into these auditions that you're suited for, right? So people usually call for auditions, and they'll say, we're looking for somebody who looks like this, is this age, can do this, plays this, whatever, and you'll get an email from him. And I did my first tour gig was actually an audition that he called me for, and that was kind of the real like launching point for my touring gigs in general, was doing that one. Because once you're in, people will say this, right? If you're in the touring like world, you stay there, right? Like you always have that like that network. Yeah.
The fact of auditioning, have you ever run into a situation where the audition was only about what you look like and the playing was like a third or fourth kind of consideration?
Sadly, I mean, yeah.
Which is a Los Angeles thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, of course, that's always a thing, but that's also, it doesn't mean that you do or don't get certain things. Like sometimes, it doesn't matter what you look like, you're just not what they want, right? It's all the above, but it will all happen for sure. Yeah. Looks, sound, like all that stuff. Yeah.
There's some, I mean, sometimes when you don't get a gig, it might be the blessing in disguise, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you might have to believe that. Yeah.
Have you been on a gig that you just wish would end soon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like a touring one, like, oh good Lord, I can't wait till we get back home.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been on that too. Like, oh, if that drummer makes the bathroom soaking wet again, I am just leaving now.
Oh my God. Oh yes, I've definitely been in that situation. I'm happy now. I'm not
the rock roll, but I've got some standards.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. It's nice. That's the only thing I could say about. The only thing I will say about being a female is like, people will try a little harder to be respectful in certain touring situations because
I was wondering like that. I mean, there is more female presence now than ever in the musician world, but it has developed while you've been developing. Have you run into any prejudice, or have you run into any challenges because of gender? Or?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I have so many stories, but it's really like people are just kind of ignorant in not like a negative way. I'm just saying like people don't know that what they're saying sounds really rude and really sexist, and I've dealt with that. But a lot of it, the only real way to get through it is you don't stand for it. Like you don't have to do the gig, right? Your life's not over if you quit the gig, or you just let it roll off your back and you use that gig to get you a different gig, right? So definitely had to deal with it, but it's not anything that like I can't laugh at now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, it does take a certain kind of personality strength. It's not, this industry is definitely not for the the wallflower or the oversensitive. I don't think.
Yeah, no, nah. I mean, well, like I'm definitely a sensitive person, but it's almost like I put on my work hat when I go into certain situations, you know, where I present myself and hold myself much more of like my own boss, you know, rather than, oh, you know, sorry, kind of, you know, like delicate and shy. You can't really do that. Otherwise you'll get stepped on. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, it's 3 o'clock. It's been the hour. Let me ask you one question. One question, Stu. Let me get one question. If you could do it all over again and come to MI, how would you prepare yourself differently coming into MI? Would you have done anything different?
I mean, this is an unfair thing to put on people because everyone's financial situation is different, but not working, right? I definitely think that if I had not had a job throughout school, I would have had much more time to work. So if you can do that, right? If you can get by with less, do that. Also, you know, you have such a limited time, and partying is fun, but it also occupies a lot of your time. So don't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nicole, awesome, awesome, awesome.
I only chimed in because you guys mentioned drummers, and I thought maybe you needed a drummer. 2 bass players, come on. I'm here. I'm available. Right?
And they're here.
No, thank you both so much. This is amazing. Like, gosh, what great advice and great interaction with all the attendees here. Nicole, we're going to have you back to follow up on some of these questions, I think.
I would love that. I had to I could see the chat box going, and I was trying to listen and like not read, you know, I'd like shut it off. Oh yeah, no, you get distracted.
I wish my English teacher from high school could see this because I've never read this much for her when I was in high school.
No. Oh my God, I think my English teacher tried to fail me.
Oh my God. Did you see how heavy that book is?
Yeah.
Thanks for setting this up, Stu. That was great.
Oh gosh, so fun. We will definitely do it again, and I'm always so jealous, selfishly, of all of our graduates having such great careers. I'm so proud of you, Nicole, and it's so great. And great to hear that you're meeting so many people that also decided to pursue higher education to move on with their careers. It's great to know.
Yeah.
Very cool. So Maurice, thank you for handling all that.
You bet, man.
Thank you all for attending. We have open house next week. You can go to the MI website and sign up for that. It's free. We got a lot of information there. And so everyone be safe out there. And thank you so much for being part of this.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everybody.